Shit. Where's the intro?
What do you mean? Where's the intro?
Oh, there it is. We are a very professional production.
Oh,
We're live.
I was loving the tunes, man. That was pretty good.
Oh, it gets better, mate. It gets better. You wait. All right. Let's take a deep breath. Let's start. And this is Shooting the Shit, Aussie Craft Distillers. My name is Craig, or Crafty, from Craftworks Distillery, and I'm in my shed. It's my shed. This is my shed. And tonight, we have a very, very special guest. And we're going to be talking about a distillery in a place where you go, holy fuck, how do you have a distillery there? So, without further ado, Dave from Willing Distillery, how are you, bud?
I'm very well, thanks, Crafty. Yourself, mate?
Mate, I'm pretty awesome. I'm in my shed. I've got my new red beanie on, which is very Bill Murray, very Life Aquatica, and people say I look a bit like Bill Murray, so I'll own it.
Why not?
And I reckon we've got a bit of a polar opposite going on because Crafty's freezing his nuts off. And what's it like in Darwin at the moment?
Mate, you can't really see on my black T-shirt, but I've got a V-neck of sweat running down here. I've just been running around out the back in my shed and in the distillery. I'm in the office now, which is air conditioned, lovely. But in the shed, it's about 36 degrees right now.
Wow.
And I'm going wow because he's got an office.
Yeah.
I've got a cocktail bar through the wall behind me as well. So if you hear some funny noises, it's not me.
Right, I want to get some serious shit out the way first. So last week I copped a lot of flack about my new glasses, right? A lot of flack, right? I was a Thunderbird puppet. I was Urkel. I was.
What do you mean was? What do you mean was?
Don't you start?
Oh, you brought it up, Mr. Biggles.
Anyway, we have a new nickname for Luke.
Right.
And
I hope you brought one with you.
no, I haven't, but I got something similar, and I thought I'd show everyone. So Luke is the glue who holds this whole insane thing together, right? And I called him Glue, and Todd went, nah, he's Bostic. So we call him Bostic.
As of the weekend. Yes.
I do not have a Bostic stick. I have a beeswax stick, which I use for barrels. It's the closest thing I've got to glue. It's the closest thing I've got to Bostic. So there it is.
Never mind your beeswax.
Never mind your beeswax.
Does it taste better?
What does?
Does the beeswax taste better than glue?
When Bostic.
I can't say I've tasted glue, so
that's all I did in primary school using Bostic, so it explains a lot, I know.
Anyway, let's get into it. So, okay, so we've introduced Dave. At the top, on the right-hand side on my screen, Brady Bunch style, is the one, the only, the Todd. And go, Todd.
And go.
Throw you under the bus.
Well, already. This is what I've decided to drink tonight since we're talking all things gin. So it is
nice.
Benson Flinders Maritime. So I always think this is very much like, to me, it tastes like driftwood smells somewhat. It's sort of like walking along with a beach. It's really quite nice.
That's curious.
That was one of my little discoveries when I was at the Distillers Conference the other day. So
Right.
that's me.
I'm going to have to get a sample of that from you, I think.
Hopefully we'll have some. Should do.
See how the night goes. We're pulling a double session tonight. So
that's just for I'm trying to pace myself.
Yeah.
all right, Luke, what's in your glass, mate? I mean, Bostic, what's in your glass besides the glue?
I've actually got this sexy little bit. Hold on. Where's my?
Well, what is
There you
it?
go. How's that
Oh,
sexy little
nice.
glass?
And where's it made?
It's made in Darwin, of all places. It's such a coincidence, really, that. Oh, hold on. Is this? That's yours.
It would be. It
Not
would
mine.
be.
Not mine.
Oh, there you
Not
go.
mine.
Yeah. Sure. There you go.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful bottle, lovely bottle, lovely simple label, and it's a cracking gin. This is the Desert Lime,
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm really enjoying it. And I can't guarantee that there will be any left for samples, guys.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I've got a few other Banks and Flinders gins I can share with you.
So that's what's in my glass.
Yeah.
And
So, look, can you disclose where it came from?
where it came from,
Who generously donated that?
well, I reached out.
Navy on ice and a bottle of Navy.
I reached out to Dave.
Hang on, we've lost our guest.
No,
There
mate.
he is.
Yeah, Guest has just
Busy-
gone to
it's
the
a busy
cocktail
night.
room beside him and put in an order.
So I reached out. I was doing a bit of
Research.
research on NT distillers because I hadn't really heard of any,
Yeah.
and I wanted to find out more and see how many there were because we know that there's a billion down in Tasmania. There's a few here in New South Wales. There's a few down in Victoria and South Australia. We know of a big one or a big couple under the same banner in WA, but I hadn't heard of anything and anyone from the NT. And I reached out to Dave. At the time, he didn't have online ordering on the website. So I emailed saying, how do I get a bottle? And he kindly hooked me up. And I thought, fuck, that's great. I want to know. I want to know more about these NT spirits even more now. So
That is a good intro because that now leads into, Dave, tell us your story, mate. Start from the
Sure.
beginning.
Well, no, first, Dave, what are you drinking tonight?
I better tell you what I'm drinking first. So,
yes.
I'm drinking. Can you just close the door, please? I'm just doing a podcast. Thanks. So I'm actually drinking this one here. Label looks very similar, but it's called Sweetheart's Navy Strength Gin. Now it's named after a crocodile from up here called Sweetheart. That was pretty famous probably about 30 years ago now, maybe even longer. Probably 40 years actually. Sweetheart lived in Sweets Lagoon, and Sweetheart used to bite the motors off the outboard motors off tinnies. So in trying to capture Sweetheart and relocate her, unfortunately, or him, he died in the process. So in the true Territorian style, they stuffed him, and he's now sitting in the museum here in Darwin. So he's a 4.5 meter croc, big croc.
Oh, he's
But-
bloody huge.
Yeah, he's big. So I thought,
I've got a picture. Here we go.
what better way to name a gin that's got a bit of bite to it, because this one does sit at 58%, rather than name it after Sweetheart. So it's Sweetheart's Navy Strength Gin. So that's where the name came from.
Wow.
There you go. That was Sweetheart before being stuffed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a big
Kids'
crocodile.
It is, yeah.
Wow,
Strange.
that's
But,
that's an interesting toy for kids by the looks of it. You know, it looks like you guys do it hard up there. Jesus.
yeah, we do.
That's,
So I'm just having a bit of that on ice. Is my drink with a little wedge of lime in there.
Very nice.
It's a big gin. When you do put it on ice, it even goes a bit cloudy.
Yep.
Yep.
Because there's a hell of a lot of flavour in there to match the 58% on it. So that's my drink for tonight.
Now, look, can I just comment on that, Dave?
Yeah.
Because you often hear people talk about cloudy gins and clear gins.
Mhm.
To me, and I'm no gin expert at all. I'm finding my way with gin, but to me, that's the oils.
It is.
That's the flavour intensity that you're carrying through. So a cloudy gin is a good gin. There's
It
nothing
is.
wrong
That's
with
right. Absolutely, mate. No, you're dead right. A cloud aging is, it should be clear in the bottle. If it wasn't, people would probably not want to buy it, wouldn't want to pick it off the shelf. But then when you do mix it with a bit of ice, you will get cloud. And that's because you're just adding more water, essentially.
Yeah.
A tonic will turn it blue, this one.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. A light blue, but there'll be a blue tinge to it.
Right.
But again, that's the oils, and it's a lot of the oils are coming from the juniper because there's a lot of juniper in the skin. So, yeah.
And
you get that.
so what's going to turn it blue? What have you got? So there's other gins that I've got on the wall behind me here with like a butterfly pea and all those sorts of fancy things in there that will change color whether you're using a soda or a tonic. What's changing? What's making
it only does it with tonic. So I'm not sure what it is in the tonic that will give it that tinge. It's got a slight tinge to it now, just on ice, just as that water's melting. But certainly with a tonic, it emphasizes it, and I'm not sure why. Whatever it is in the tonic that does it. We always use a Fever Tree tonic here in the bar. And it does get a real sort of light blue tinge to it. It's quite nice.
That's a really good question, actually. We could put out to Marcel Thompson, who's been in the game for a long, long time, because I've seen that before too, this blue tinge. I really have no understanding of why.
Yeah, it only comes from tonic, I've noticed. It doesn't come from soda.
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times. So, Marcel, if you're there, help us out. Tell us. Hey, before we go any further, I forgot to mention what I'm drinking. So let me just butt in for a second. So you're about to. So you see that little logo? Right? This was a nice little present that I got. I ordered something from Christy Lark. She does alchemeters as sort of a side thing. And I bought these alchemeters and I put them in the shed. And 6 months later, I pull them out and have a look at them, and there's this little wee parcel from Christy Lark, and it says "Merry Christmas." And I was like,
and Christy Lark sitting there going, "How rude! I gave him a present."
Exactly. I thought the same thing. I was like,
three times since then.
The rude bastard. I'll never say anything. But so she sent me this little wee sample of KD63, 56%.
Very nice.
And that is how Australian craft distillers roll. Just putting it out there, man. Kristen, thanks. I've got the lid off. So I'm about to pour it. So, oh yeah.
Typical Lark fashion.
Yeah. No, Chrissy is just making some amazing.
Good colour.
Oh yeah. All right, keep going. While I.
So, Dave, did you go down to the ADA conference?
No, I didn't. I was planning to, and things ran away from me a bit. I did go down for the Melbourne Gin Festival about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
4 weeks ago, maybe. So I got down there for that, but I wasn't able to go back down for the Distillers Conference, unfortunately.
It wasn't that good. It was only these two that were there, so I didn't make it. So
and 398 other people. It was huge, Dave. When I started, there was 60 odd distillers, and there's now 400 odd distillers with 400 delegates. It was a really robust conference, great networking, great speakers, and it was a big reunion for a lot of people, but it was also a lot of new people, and it was just fantastic to see the camaraderie in the industry. It really, really was. So actually on the throw Todd under the bus segment, I'll give you some warning. Todd's going to give us a bit of a rundown of what happened at the conference. He can breathe now, and he's got a lead question.
This time.
You can sit on it for now. All right, Dave. So, going back to the start, mate, we always like to hear what inspired a distiller to get going. Relatable. And those early steps. We'll talk about the later steps, but those early steps, how did you get into the game?
Yeah, so I was a bit of a hobby distiller. sort of throwing around ideas around whiskey, and I was down in Tasmania on a work trip. So I was working for the government at the time, Northern Territory government, and I was at a conference down in Tassie. So I ended up in, funny you should mention Lark, I ended up in their bar down at Salamanca at the wharf there, and booked in for a tour the following afternoon because I had an afternoon free. So I went and did a tour there. So this is back in about 2015, 16. Did the tour.
There's time.
Yeah, it was a good time. So did the tour, loved it, and thought, you know what, I'm actually really interested in pursuing this further and going to the next level. So spoke to my wife about it, and she said, well, why don't you go and do the course? Because I found the Tasmanian Whisky Academy and Anne Gigney's gig down there. So I signed up for that and did the course back in 2018. I'm just looking at my IBD on the wall, 2018. And then I went and got certified through IBD after that as General Certificate in Distilling for whiskey.
Yeah.
And then through that process, learned, you know what? It's really fucking hard to make whiskey in tropical climates.
And we're going to ask you about that.
Yeah. So I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
But then I thought, okay, so I came back home and wrote a business plan. I was at the time working in the Chief Minister's Department up here, and then I moved across to Police, Fire and Emergency Services, and I was running Fire Rescue and Emergency Services at the time. And my wife, and I had this business plan sitting on the shelf, and my wife said, like, this is crazy. You're not actually thinking of doing this, are you? And I sort of said, well, you've got a good job in government too. If I'm going to do this, and I was just turning 50 at the time, I said, I need some energy to make this work. So I want to give it a crack. And thankfully, I've got an awesome wife who said, go for it. So I did a massive sideways move out of executive government world and resigned left in July 2020 and went full-time into establishing the distillery at that point.
Wow.
Yeah, launched the first gin then in April 2021. So it took good 10 months to get up and off the ground, as everyone who's done it knows. Governments don't work quickly, other than the federal government who want their excise tax, but everyone else sort of moves a little slower and takes a while to get your approvals through. But once I got there, then it was plus it takes a while to get a still as well. When you want to order a 600-litre still, they don't they don't come cheap, but they also don't. It's not one sitting on the shelf somewhere for you. So someone's got to build that for you.
And where did you get your still from?
Mark Burns in Griffith. Mark Burns in Griffith made my still.
Oh, nice.
No, I didn't know that. Wow.
There you go. Beautiful picture.
Yeah, I bet you it doesn't look like that now.
No, it doesn't. I've never been able to get back looking like that.
No. I had Burnsy.
One of our sponsors.
Yes,
They
he
are.
is. He's one of our sponsors, exactly. Burns Whiting Fabrication, which we'll talk about our sponsors later on. It's interesting. I had Burnsy in my shed because I got a Burnsy still as well, right? I had him in my shed.
Doesn't look like that one.
Sorry?
No.
Doesn't look like that one.
No, exactly. Well, Burnsy was in the shed about a month ago, and he went up to a still and had a look at it and went, "You could clean it." And I went, "No, it's a workhorse. It's a workhorse." And he goes, "Yeah, I wouldn't take much. If you do this, you do that, bing." And I was like, "No, it's a workhorse." Because I know he prides himself when he releases those stills. Right? It may take 6 months to build the thing, but it takes like 5 days to polish the fucker as well.
Oh, yeah,
and,
they're beautiful,
and this
mate.
was very shiny.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I hadn't turned it on at that point.
Oh, doesn't look like that now, obviously.
No, not at all.
I'm glad to see you got the glass manway. It's it makes a hell of a difference, doesn't it, having the glass manway?
Heaps better. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why people get the cast ones with their name on it.
Yeah,
But I like the glass one heaps better. Yeah, you can see what's going on in there.
exactly. You connect with what's happening in the still. You can see the rolling boil, and if something's fucking up, you can see it straight away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was it Chieftain's Son or Banks and Flinders that had it engraved on their glass one?
Right in the glass.
Oh, it's Bass and Flinders.
Banks and
Yeah.
Flinders, yeah.
Yeah, Holly
Yeah.
had one, Bass and Flinders, and yeah, she wasn't happy with the engraving, but it wasn't a Burnsy still. It was imported still, and it's a lovely still. But then she shows you the engraving. She goes, "Look at that! It's a piece of shit. The still's good, but the engraving shit." So, hey, you're on it's fascinating because your story is very, very similar to my story. 2015 is when it all started for me. I did the first Angigney Tassie Whiskey Academy course. I went out afterwards and was totally hooked on IBD and did the certificate in distilling. And it was one of the best things that I did to give me some structure just on how to approach it. And you've done exactly the same, mate. So, yeah, that's really...
It was a great course. Really, really good course. Really good speakers, really good instructors on that course. And then if you're willing to put in the sort of 4 to 6 months of study afterwards to get that IBD certificate under your belt, it's well worthwhile because you learn so much from it. And because you've got to get such a high pass mark in that thing, you remember it too, because you got to study it for a good 4 or 5 months to really get it to sink in before you do it. So,
stressing out about it at the moment, to be honest.
Oh, yeah? You're in the middle of it. Oh, good on you.
Test
Hang in there,
sometime between the 3rd to the 11th of May.
Yeah, so it's good. It's worth doing. Definitely.
So.
Yeah. The good thing about
I couldn't have done it without it. I couldn't have done this without it. There's no way because there was no one up here to bounce ideas off. I didn't have a mentor up the road that I could go and talk to. So one of the massive challenges here is just people to talk to about distilling, people that have been there and done it and know it. You sort of learn a lot along the way, as much as you can off other people, but it's hard when they're not sitting next to you.
Yeah, you got some unique challenges there, haven't you?
Definitely. Right. Distance is hard. Like when I was setting up, there was 2 people I was bouncing a lot off. The people on my course, I had Daniel Lemura from Noble Bootleggers in Bendigo.
Right.
Daniel was. I saw a photo of you with Daniel the other day. Actually, it was at the Distillers Conference, I reckon, Crafty.
Yeah, it was.
Daniel and the other one was Danielle Jane from Southwester Spirits in WA, and Sarah Gunn as well. She was on my course as well. Who's got? She's down in Tassie there. So those people have been really helpful. So when I was really stuck, I'd ring Daniel or I'd ring Danny. And they'd done it. They'd already set up. They were already established and running. So they were able to wade through some of the shit for me and just give me the answer straight off. So very, very helpful to have those type of people who are already in the industry to help you along your way.
And so is there much of an industry in the Northern Territory?
No,
how many distillers have you got up there?
There's 3 that I know of. I think the Australian Distilling Company's in the process of building a distillery here so that they can make Darwin Craft.
Darwin.
Darwin Craft gin, so they can sort of give it some respectability, because at the moment they've been selling it for years and making it in Adelaide and calling it Darwin Craft Gin. So they are putting a distillery in here. There's Darwin Distilling Company, which operates out of a restaurant called Charlie's in the CBD here. They've sort of got a still in the middle of their restaurant, which is actually a fairly nice Still Dragon still, one of the big Still Dragon stills, gin still. But there's not much room around it to do much, so I don't think they're putting out a lot of quantity. And they're doing one of those compound gins, so it's a bit like what Archie Rose did. So it's all mix and matching flavors as opposed to the one-shot distillation method. So easy to do when you're using a column still like they've got. I'm using a pot still, as you saw on the photo. So it's very traditional methods for me. It's all one-shot distillation method. Really trying to bring it back to grassroots of how gin was made a couple of 100 years ago.
So how do you get your botanicals into your pot still?
Yeah, they're just throwing all in there.
Steeping
Yeah.
in
Yeah, I steep in there for 1 or 2 days beforehand at least. Depends on what it is I'm making. And I don't have a gin basket.
Yep.
But if I am using soft botanicals that I'm worried will overcook, then I've got a stainless steel colander that I'll hang off the CIP. And I just throw them in there. And it works great. So the desert lime gin, good example. There's lime leaves, lime peel, desert limes. They're all soft botanicals. They all go in a big stainless steel colander, and I just suspend them off the bottom of the CIP in the still there, and it works a treat. So back 200 years ago, I reckon that's how they were doing it when they were making gin. So I've taken it right back to basics. No bubble plates, no windows, no column. It's just gin as it used to be made.
Yeah. And a copper pot
And-
still.
And look, it comes out in the flavour. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice.
I actually think the flavors come through well. I think they blend well out of a pot still. I find that column stills tend to separate flavors a bit. And certainly the blended gins or the compound gins the flavors don't bond well together. I find because they're mixed after the fact. And I just find they break up. It can be a little stiffer, a little harsher, I think.
So you're a gin distiller, but you're also a whiskey distiller.
Yep.
And the two are diametrically opposed. They really are, right? As you well know. So tell us about particularly your whiskey story. How did you get into that? And I really want to understand the challenges you've got, because I was thinking about it. You don't have an Angel share. You have an Angel's. I don't know. They basically
So it'd have to be pretty greedy up there. You're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
Gesture in your cast. Right, they take everything else.
Yeah,
It'd be
right.
Angel's alimony, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, you're facing what was faced in Taiwan, and I'm thinking about Carverland in particular, right? When they were up in the 20-25% Angel share per annum, right? Yeah. And they couldn't do old whiskies because there ain't anything left in the barrel. So they've now, from what I understand, they're underground. They're putting casks underground now to try and slow down the Angel share. So yeah, tell us, Dave. Tell us about your challenges. How you're.
Yeah. So I'm currently in a 200 square meter shed.
Wow, twice the size of ours.
Yeah, I've got sort of
an office.
Some of it is that includes my little office here, but it also includes a cocktail bar in the front, which is about 35 square meters out of that.
Nice.
So usable distillery space, I'm probably at about 100 square meters, but the shed I'm in has another tenant behind me with another 200 square meters.
Right.
So I'm going to pick that up as well. He's in the process of moving out. When he does, I'll be extending back into that other 200 square meters, and I'll use that for storage. So the plan is probably initially I'll use shipping containers to put barrels in, and I'll climate control them.
Yeah, I was going to say you have to.
Yeah, I do. I will have to. So the fermentation's fine. I've got a chiller on my fermenter, so everything's jacketed. So we can do the fermentation. That's fine. But yeah, once it goes in the barrel, there are some big challenges. I've been playing around with gin and some barrel rested gin.
Yep.
Using just a little 20 litre. And yeah, the Angel share just in 6 weeks was noticeable. So and that was sitting in the shed. So at the moment, the humidity is really high here, and the shed, obviously no climate control out the back at the moment. It sits at around 36 degrees most of the time. In the dry season, and we're coming into the dry season now, the humidity will drop off and the temperature will also drop down. So it will improve, but it still rarely gets below sort of 28 degrees.
So where does it drop down to? Not much.
Not much, no. 28 in the shed. Over night time, it might drop down to sort of 23, 24 in the shed.
Mm-hmm.
That's about as low as it'll get.
Yeah. But
So,
then you've also got, through the rain system, you would have significant high pressure systems coming through as well. And all
question.
of that would, I'm sure, affect the barrel
Massively.
as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not, when you think about it, barrel aging in the tropics is not a new thing. There's been a whole lot of rum aged in barrels in the tropics for a long time, and they get away with it. I mean, Kaylin in the Hoochery is down at Karananara. Now, she's a fair way south from Darwin, as the crow flies, but she's still well and truly in the tropics, so she suffers the same sort of issues. Rum, though, is more forgiving than whiskey.
Right.
Whiskey will the flavors. Whiskey's a little more delicate than a rum, I think, because of the high sugar in the rum and the sweetness in the rum. And I think that's probably why everyone gravitates towards that in the tropics. Plus the availability of your raw materials. Your sugar cane is grown in the tropics, whereas your grain is grown in colder climates. So it makes sense that you're making grain alcohol in the southern states and sugar alcohol up north.
I heard a good thing from Westland Distillery. So Westland, they're in barley country, and people were saying, when are you going to release the bourbon? And they go, why would we do that? Our local raw material is barley. Why would we go and go get corn? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So you use what's local. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, the Hoochery's done that. I think when Spike was alive, way back when, he was finding it hard to get sugarcane even. So he planted some, and he was growing his own sugarcane because they've got the Ord River system up there in Kununurra, so they had plenty of water. And he planted his own cane and had a cane field up there. So,
and so, how do you find it getting the barley? What's the local?
Thankfully, thankfully, I've got a couple of local breweries here. So there are two breweries here. One is 1 Mile, and they've been operating now for about a decade, I think. And the other one is Beaver Brewery, and he's been running for 3 or 4 years. So both of those guys are already accessing malted barley and have got all those connections, and the shipping lines are already there. So I'll piggyback straight off the back of those guys. So that's not a major issue. One of the big challenges of having a distillery up in the top end is freight. Everything gets freighted up from down south. So I use my bottles are from Saverglass. They come from bloody UAE or France or wherever they come from, wherever they're being made at the time. They end up in Adelaide or Melbourne, and then they ship them back up here to me. So there's this massive shipping cost associated with everything I do, whether it's labels, bottles, stoppers, barley, everything. It's still from
And what about your markets, Dave? So where are you targeting? Is it very much a local centric thing? Bars, restaurants,
it has been for the last 12 months. So very much a local one. Because we were the only sort of full-time distillery operating over the last 12 months, we were able to get ourselves in behind most of the bars and restaurants in town.
Right.
So that's been great. The local market has been fantastic. So shortly after I opened the distillery and the cellar door, we opened the cellar door straight away. I also opened a cocktail bar a couple of months later at the front of the shed. So tonight we've had probably around 80 people through here.
Oh wow!
Which is a normal Friday. This being a Thursday, but being Easter Friday tomorrow, everyone's shut, so everyone's treating this as their Friday. So that's been fantastic because the cash flow that's generated has allowed me to push a whole lot of money back into the distillery and make sure that that we've got the cash flow there to support it. So Very, very helpful to have that one. And the locals have supported it really well. So the tourist season, obviously, from pretty much from this weekend, which is Easter, through till about the 1st of October, that's our dry season, which is also our peak tourism season. So our numbers will double. Our numbers through the door will double. We're the only show in town. It's not like the Barossa where you go and you're choosing from sort of 50 wineries, or Tassie choosing from 50 distilleries.
Yeah.
We're the only game in town, unless you want to go up to Charlie's and have a cocktail in that cocktail bar and have a look at that still. So this is a unique experience here, and the tourists love it. Yeah. So locals love bringing their families in who are visiting too, because there's not many people from Darwin who live in Darwin. There's a lot of people who have come to Darwin from somewhere else, and their families all come up and visit because they're here for a couple of years on a contract or something like that.
Yeah, right.
So when they come and visit, they bring them here.
So you've got I'm just thinking out loud here. You've got a moment of time where you're controlling this real unique position where you don't have any competitors, right? So
yeah, I do, but they're different. They're in different lanes.
As in, like 20 distilleries in the same cities. So you don't have that scenario. So what's your mindset? What's your approach to really entrenching that position in? So you are the distillery in Darwin. So then when others come in, you're ahead of the game. What's your thinking? What's your approach to that?
Getting behind bars in town, number one, and staying there. So that's really important for us.
Relationship.
Keeping up with the marketing. Marketing is everything. If you're not marketing on social media, you're not getting your product out there. It's as simple as that. You've got to spend the money and the time on doing some good marketing. You've got to spend some money on doing, if you're not taking good photos yourself and someone says to you, these photos are shit because you're taking them, get someone professional in to do them. And the same for your videos. If you're just doing the odd sort of live stream on Facebook and it's shit, get someone in that knows what they're doing to help.
That's our whole thing.
That's our brand.
Yeah, that's fine. This is good. It'll cost bucks in marketing dollars, but those marketing dollars will put your brand out there, and it's so important to get the marketing right, no matter what your brand is, and who you're marketing it to. If you know those two things, you know what your brand is, you know what you're doing, and you know who you want to market to, get some professional in to help you to make sure that works and you're spending the right money in the right place. So we're doing some of that next week. We're doing some filming next week here, and we're really going to start to ramp that marketing up. I've done the Gin Festival in Melbourne 3 weeks ago. I'm going to Brisbane next month in about 4 weeks for that festival, and I'm doing Adelaide in June. I'm only doing those 3 this year, but at the same time, I'm looking for distribution in those 3 cities. So if I can nail down a distributor in those 3 cities, again, it's going to cost me some upfront costs because I'm going to have to freight a whole lot of stock down into those cities, and that's going to cost me. But it's all about getting the brand out there, getting known. We're made in Darwin. It's on the label. People are going to be interested in that. And from what we've seen so far, the interest in that so far in Melbourne was fantastic. We didn't think we'd sell 100 bottles at the Gin Festival in Melbourne, but we did. And we didn't have a flashy stand with flashy banners because we had to fly everything down there. So it was pretty minimalistic. But people really enjoyed the drinks because they're a little, yes, they're gin, and yes, there's a shitload of gin out there, but they're a little bit unique. 1, because we're from Darwin, and 2, because we're using some flavors. Other distilleries are using them as well, but we're really pushing those flavors as being those local indigenous flavors like Kakadu plum, desert lime, Kwandong. And mixing those with traditional botanicals as well. I think a lot of distillers might have gone a bit too far one way and gone, oh yeah, we're making our gin from Australian botanicals. Yeah, well, is it gin anymore? Because there's not too many places you can buy Australian juniper, and you need a hell of a lot of it. So even if you grow on your own, probably don't have enough to support any volume. So we all know the best junipers still comes in from Europe, places like Macedonia.
Yeah, exactly.
So rather than just say, all right, I'm going to use Australian botanicals, which is great. You're making something quite unique and quite new. We're trying to use those traditional botanicals, and we'll use 5, 6, 7 traditional botanicals, but then we'll throw in an Australian one like some Kwandong and Kakadu plum or the desert lime.
And do you
try and keep it traditional, but with an Aussie edge on it? And people are really enjoying the drink. So yeah.
And
hang on, Luke. Can I just say something quickly?
You may.
I personally think the CUNT just works. You know,
You in the NT, yeah,
just sit it on the bottle, mate. It'll sell. It'll sell.
it does, man. It does. Yeah.
Since looking at NT distilleries, all over my Facebook and web searches, I'm just seeing CU and NT
Yeah.
everywhere.
See you in the NT, man.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Can you imagine? I was talking to someone about it the other day. Can you imagine that all these high flyer marketing people were sitting in a boardroom, right, with all these government officials, and go, CUNT, and everyone in the room went, "He's not fucking kidding. He's not real, is it?"
It's got a nice ring to it, yeah.
It's got a nice ring to it, yeah.
That one's, if you go to the website, it's unofficial.com, unofficialnt.com.au, because the government hates that whole "see you in the NT" slogan thing, but it's gone viral, so there's nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, that's stuck there. Yeah.
Oh,
Mate,
yeah.
it's up there with the lamb ads, that one. It really is.
Yeah, it is.
So I want to circle back to your whiskey,
Yes.
because, well, we love whiskey, and because
As
you
do
do
I.
have so many challenges with it, how far through the whiskey journey are you?
I'm still at the start, to be fair.
Very nice.
I've got the equipment here now.
Mm-hmm.
And I only just got my fermenter the other day. So I'm hoping that I'll be laying some down in the next couple of months.
Right. And that'll be in your climate-controlled shipping containers?
It might be in my office. I might have to vacate this space,
Right.
and it'll end up in here. It's the only aircon I got.
So
yeah.
to have that much climate control for that long,
Yeah,
that's going to be a cost exercise as well.
it is.
How, I mean, already there is the argument that Australian whiskey is expensive,
Yes.
or it's too expensive compared to a Scotch or a bourbon or whatever. Now, obviously, there's a lot of factors influencing the price of an Australian whiskey. Volume, for one. How do you foresee that going for you, given that you've got a greater possibility of lower volumes, whilst having to spend so much money and effort in not losing the shit?
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So some of it'll be a bit of suck it and see. So I'm planning on doing both. I'm planning on laying some down in the back shed and seeing how it goes. I'm only going to use big barrels. I can't use 10s, 20s, 50s. It's just going to be gone.
Yeah.
So hogsheads will be the way I'll go.
Nice.
Had a good chat with Andrew Young down at
Yeah, he commented earlier on. He mentioned you. Here he goes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, there we go. Makes a good keeper too.
He's on.
Yeah. So, so I had a good chat with Young about it, and we'll see how we go. We'll throw some outside, and we'll throw some in the climate control, and then over the course of sort of 6 to 12 months, we'll look at it. Yeah,
right.
Putting it underground is kind of hard. It's where I'm located here. It's bedrock 30 centimeters down, so I'm not digging any big holes in a hurry. I only know that because I put a pool in about 3 years ago, and it cost me a fortune.
You can always take the pool out and make it into a cave.
Yeah. You just put a tap
I
over it.
really like the pool though.
Yeah, especially up there, I can imagine.
Yeah, Nick Hope had a comment too about a potentially using earthen floor, so dunnage style to control things. Have you considered doing anything like that?
I can't. I'm on concrete. The whole shed's concrete and it's surrounded by bitumen. So yeah, not much opportunity for that either.
No.
But
it's a great location, a tin shed surrounded by bitumen on one great big heat sink.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Location.
I picked my spot perfectly. It's going to work.
That's it. The issue with earthen floors as well, up here they're still hot. So
I suppose.
like my swimming pool at the moment is sitting at 32 degrees Celsius because the ground around it's still at that.
Yeah.
So everything just heats up so much and it all just gets to that temperature. So it's difficult to get around it other than to climate control it.
Yeah. So let's come back to your whiskey making. So I always ask this question, and it's pretty.
Just get William Rule's question in first.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So
it's a very good question.
The tests I did with the gin went slightly up. So that was only in a 20.
Yeah.
And we barrel aged it for about 6 weeks, and the ABV did go up. Very slightly, but it did go up.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I found that pretty interesting as well. But I haven't done enough testing to know if that's going to work when we use the larger barrels for whiskey. So it'd be great if it does.
It's always the challenge. Yeah. It's smaller distilleries, and we're the same. Yeah, the experimental side of it, you really don't know. It's you do things as you go along and you learn something, but then you've got to validate it another way down the track, because otherwise it's like something happened. Maybe it was because of that, or I don't know. Yeah, that's it. So my question is, when I started, I was very much focused in the Scottish way of making whiskey, and then I learned how to make whiskey in Australia. I went to Tassie, did the whole thing. Did courses, etc. Very, very Scotch-centric style way of making whiskey. But over the years, I've become more and more influenced by the ways of making whiskey in America. I'm not talking about bourbon. I'm talking about single malts and that. So where are you in the? And it's not black and white. You know, it's a blend of different techniques and other techniques, winemaking techniques and brewers techniques and that. Where are you in the grand scheme of things with your thinking with whiskey and how you want to make whiskey?
Yeah, I love peaty whiskies. My favorite whiskey is Lafroig.
Yeah, the Marmite of the whiskey world.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I love the Isle of malts. So that's what I would love to make. Now, the challenge is, how do I do that here? And I probably shouldn't be trying to make that here because I don't think it's going to work.
Right.
I think it's more so. There's going to be a lot of trial and error. I think we're going to make a lot of whiskies initially that some are going to be shit, I think.
Yeah.
But we're going to learn from each one that we do.
Yep.
And then we'll just keep going with whatever works in the end. And there's going to be a lot of trial and error because there's just no one else doing whiskey in the top end of Australia at the moment. There's some people trying some things sort of around the tropics, around the Tropic of Capricorn type line, but not this far north. So, yeah, it's going to be a challenge.
Pioneer.
Yeah, I guess so. In some ways, but we'll start off with some tried and tested methods.
Yep.
Things that have worked. I'm looking to the rum industry a lot to try and get some ideas from them on what works for them and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully we can roll those two together. So I'm actually looking more at the rum industry than the whiskey industry around how we look after it once it's in
Right.
a barrel.
So does that mean you're going to still focus on whiskey, or will you dabble in rum as well?
I want to do whiskey first. That
Yep.
was always my goal. My goal going into this was to make whiskey in the tropics.
Mhm.
And yeah, everyone said no. No one does that. It's
You're a
stupid.
fucking mental case.
Yeah, exactly. What are you doing?
Yeah, but yeah, if you think about it a different way, you look at what happened in Taiwan, right? And I remember clearly going to a whiskey show in Australia, and there was this new distillery that had just released, and they were a soft drink factory in Taiwan and they released Kavalan whiskey, right? And Kavalan whiskey it's up there in the higher echelons of great whiskey on the world stage. They were influenced massively by, don't quote me on this, it could be wrong on my facts, have been known to be wrong, Dr. Swan. And the whole concept
Stream of conviction.
I'm trying desperately here, of the importance of barrels and how they manage barrels and everything else. But anyway, they made world-class whiskies in a really challenging environment. So from a longitude, latitude, and position and everything else, I think there'd be a lot of similarities to what you're doing to what the Taiwanese did. So it would be an interesting reference.
Maybe I'll have to go over there for a visit.
Yeah,
Now that COVID's gone.
yeah.
Gone.
And I think the Japanese have done some interesting things too around climate control. They're very scientific about the way they go about making their whiskies. Some distilleries are really have really strict controls around where they're storing their whiskey. So, and some of it is around climate control as well. So, yeah, I think it's like I said, like you mentioned before, Luke. The costs, or it might have been you, Todd, that the costs can blow out really easily around this stuff. If I spend too much money up front on trying to keep it safe, then it may become untenable to make anything off it. So what's the point?
I guess that's going to be something you won't know until you try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when I've got experienced people around, like Youngie's good because he's making barrels for everybody. He's not just making whiskey barrels; he's making rum barrels too. So he's sending barrels over to Fiji. So he's a really good contact who's getting feedback from those industries, and he can help me as well and give me little pointers on how we should maybe do it up here. So yeah. I've got to go over to Kununurra now that WA's opened up as well and catch up with Kaylin and have a chat with her about what she's doing as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You touched on something which I think is very, very important. And Youngie and I talked about it. It's so important to have relationships with Coopers.
It is,
because it is a very much it's a two-way street. They want feedback on their casks, and you want to give them feedback on their casks, and you do a lot of learning together. And we're doing it. So you mentioned Youngie. Youngie's a mentor of mine right from the start. We've had lots and lots of conversations about what we're trying to do from a whiskey perspective and from a cask perspective, and it's so important because if you don't have those it's like any suppliers. If you don't have good relations, you're not getting the best out of it for sure.
Yeah, that's right. You're dead right, mate. And for me, it's on the gin side. It's the same. I've got to have good relationship with my suppliers for the botanicals to make sure that I know where they're coming from. And talking to them about, all right, where did you get the shipment from? The last batch of Desert Lime I made, the Star Anise, was a lot stronger. Why? Did you get it from a different supplier? Is it fresher? So you constantly got to be having those conversations with your suppliers. Yeah, they're part of your process. They're part of what makes your product. So knowing the provenance of your barrels is really important. What was in it before?
Yeah.
And if you don't know that because you don't have a relationship with your cooper, then it's kind of hard at the back end to go, well, why did that work in that barrel? Well, I don't know because I don't know what was in it beforehand.
Yeah.
You got to know. You got to understand what was there first.
I
So A, you can replicate it, or B, you can fuck it off and do something different next time.
Yeah, it's like winemakers. You know, if you're pulling wine casks out of wineries, you really got to have a good relationship with the winery to know how they're handling their barrels. You know, if they're sulfuring your barrels and you don't know it, and then you go and make your spirit and put it into a whiskey cask, it's fucked. It's basically fucked. And
some interesting flavors develop there.
Yeah.
And aromas.
And aromas. I want to take it a different direction. So down at the ADA conference, it was really good. And there's a lot of conversation around the state associations, right? So the Tasmanians have got organised in spirits. The South Australians have got organised. They have their own association. Victoria have their own association. So they work with local state government and access funding, right? South Australia particularly is pulling some big money out of the South Australian government right now on the basis of tourism promotion and getting there's new business opportunities out there. They're doing a fantastic job. Anyway, the New South Walians, we got our ass kicked at the conference, right? Because we have been...
As we should.
We have what?
As we should.
As we should. Rightly so. So we've tried to sort of organise things and COVID-2 hit and it just didn't get off the ground. So anyway, we've got to get our shit together.
Yeah.
We're going to get our shit together, and we are going to get our shit together. And there'll be an association in New South Wales, which will be part ACT New South Wales because of so few distilleries in ACT. You would have huge opportunities up there from accessing the tourism sector and working with NT government. But it's really hard because there's so few of you up there.
That's right. So our link, you're right, our link is into the tourism sector. So there is financial support and grant funding available from the tourism sector. There's also a little bit on the hospitality side and small business side, but it's not heaps. But definitely the tourism side is where I've been looking. And in so much as a couple of weeks ago, we were on the Today Show.
Yep.
So the weather guy was here in Darwin for a week, and Tourism NT put Channel 9 in touch with us. So that was fantastic for us because it was the same week that I launched online sales. So you mentioned that before, Luke.
Wow.
We didn't have online sales.
Yeah.
That very weekend, I launched online sales at the same time that we did that, which was fantastic because I've sold like $1,600 worth of gin the following day. That was great.
Wow. Well done.
So those types of, and again, that comes down to relationships. So it's really good to be able to do that.
You've got government connections as well. So why don't Queensland have an association? Right, it's fairly embryonic, I think. Why don't NT and Queensland sort of? I'm just putting it out there. So there's sort of a similarity there, and there's a lot of common ground, and it could work.
You could probably do one across the top end now because we've got the Hoochery in Kununurra, Moontide over in Broome. You've got Mount Uncle is probably the furthest north now, north of Cairns.
Yep.
Mount Uncle Distillery up there.
Yep.
There's another one in Cairns now. There's one in Townsville called Wolf Lane. There's a few distilleries up in the top end now in Australia. Most of them are doing gin. But I think it just comes down to the numbers, mate. We just don't have – there's not a lot of them. if you get to sort of 30, then you've got a group that can sort of do something.
Yeah.
Under that, you're probably just going to be sort of sideswiped by government, and you're going to be pushing shit uphill to really get anything out of them, make an impact.
What you got to do is you got to work the angles of, well, look what New South Wales is doing. Look what Tassie's doing. You know,
That's
look
right.
What, NT, come on, what's going on? You were falling behind, and make them feel like shit. We've got to do something. We've got to pick the game up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because we do.
We've been spitballing a bit of an idea of a state of origin.
Oh yeah. Go. Tell him.
State of origin competition or
Fight Club.
challenge tasting fight club between the states. Obviously, Tassie have a big representation. They've got a large team. I'm sure we could get a few top enders in there to face off against the Southerners and come up with the goods.
Definitely. Yeah, I'd be in that for sure.
No,
Well, I mean, straight away, all those Tassie distilleries like putting pepperberry in everything. Come on.
So the concept is sort of state of origin, fight club, Highlander. There can only be one.
Oh, yeah. There can only be one. I like it.
The biggest condition is we have to taste them all. So
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how it's going to work on that.
Do I get to wear a kilt?
you can wear whatever you like. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. It's that time. He's had a leading question. He's prepared. He's organised, and he's about to be thrown under a bus.
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
All right, Dave, hang on. So we throw Todd under the bus because we just do.
Why not?
And so, Todd, so the background is I did a self-imposed apprenticeship for 3 years. I called myself an apprentice distiller. I refused to call myself a distiller. After 3 years, I called myself a distiller. So Todd was the apprentice's apprentice. He's my right-hand man. And
Literally the blind leading the blind.
blind leading the blind, of course. Yeah. So we have a little segment called Throw Todd on the Bus, which is very much
It's
centered
supposed to
on.
be a learning section for me, but all it does is gives me shingles.
Hello, Misty. Hello. That's my dog. Okay, so Todd, it's yours, mate. Roll.
So what question did you want me to ask?
It's your session. Go for it.
Well, one pressing question I've wanted to ask all night was, in summer, we have a hell of a time trying to cool down our cooling water. So do you recirc your cooling water, and how on earth do you get it cold enough to actually do anything in your still?
Yeah, I've got a 14 kilowatt chiller.
That'll work. Taking notes up there, Mr. Redcat?
It's
Yeah,
got
I've got 4.
yeah, it's a Gladiator. It's a Gladiator chiller. I bought it secondhand from a mine site in Queensland. Cost me 10 grand. It works a treat though, and well worth it. And I can hook up a jacketed fermenter and have the still running at the same time. Everything will sit at 15 degrees if I want it to.
Wow.
And that's inside my shed as well. That's not outside that chiller. It's inside. It's on wheels.
Awesome.
And you're recircing your water?
Yeah, there's an 80 litre water tank in the bottom of it. If you Google Gladiator chiller, it should come up. Yeah, it's a ripper. So the 80 litre tank is built inside it. So it's, just recircs 80 litres. I've never had to fill it up. I've been using it for the last 12 months. It's great.
Next question is, I'm doing the distiller's certificate, and we're doing the.
I can't take the test.
Please. No, I'm doing the set for success at the moment, and there was a question that came up last night, which unfortunately Monty Python got in my head, but it was to do with juniper. Okay. What does juniper grow on? Does it grow on a shrub, a weed, or a tree?
Shrubbery.
Shrubbery.
It's my juniper bush, is what it
I'd
was stuck in
definitely
my
call
head.
it a bush. Yeah, I'd call it a bush.
Well, the answer is it grows on a tree, which stumped half the class, which was
Yeah.
an interesting one for us.
It's,
So
it's, a conifer. It's like a conifer, so it is a tree. But you see them when they pick it. I've seen photos of the Macedonians pick it, and they're picking it on the side of hills that are covered in rocks, and they've got these little bushes on them, and yeah, they call them trees.
bush
but,
is
yeah.
a tree. So there's a bit of this debate going backwards and forwards about this poor
They've
question.
just got really
That's
small
open
trees
yet.
in Macedonia. Really small trees in Macedonia, mate. That's it.
Yeah, they're not very tall themselves, are they?
Lucky.
Careful, Todd.
I have never seen them on a ladder picking.
And there goes our entire Macedonian audience.
Yeah, we lost it. We lost it. 5.2 seconds.
And there's a country they're not going to now.
Throw Macedonia under the bus.
Good juniper, though. Good juniper.
Okay,
I
so
was trying to find a picture
Any
of people on
I
the
think
side of a cliff.
I think it depends on the juniper too, because there are a few different species out there. So
Yeah.
some of them probably do grow quite large, I would imagine.
They just look like blueberries.
Oh,
They
look.
do.
Hang on a sec. Here's some I prepared earlier. Well, maybe not.
Yeah, you got to aim it at the camera.
yeah, that's it. Put it in front of the lens.
Is that a stray cardamom pot that was in there as well, Craig?
Yeah, it was, mate. It was a straight. Yeah. So let's talk about Jen, because a bit of background. So I am very, very fortunate. My Jen mentors, Nick and Ellie, the legends from Karoo Distillery. And to me, Jen, and the learnings that I've done is so akin to cooking.
Yes.
It's all about balance and understanding your ingredients in that. And it's a totally different world than rum or whiskey or anything else. So the question is, how do you develop your techniques to develop a gin? What was your approach to it, besides a lot of reading?
Yeah, there was a lot of reading, but there was also and research around recipe development. And this is going back a lot of years ago now, when I was toying around as a hobby distiller. But even as a hobby distiller, I was using an alembic pot still back then, so I wanted to make sure that what I was making was true to the drink. So I did a lot of research around that, and you can find some things online. You certainly can't find too many recipes online that are worth anything, but you can get ideas on how you get that balance. And you're dead right, mate. It is just like being in a kitchen. So you've got to know what flavors are going to dominate if you put too much in, and things like star anise, cloves. Those flavors are big, and you need bugger all of that stuff to totally fuck your gin. And end up with ouzo. So you got to be careful around how much of those ingredients you're using, but doing your test batches is really important. If you're doing one-shot distillations, those test batches are all important. If you're making compound gins, blended gins, where everything's being distilled separately, it doesn't matter so much, because you can mix and match in small quantities. Okay, that tastes good. I got that right. And then you can do it en masse. But when you're doing single shot distillations, you've got to get your recipe right first in a test still, in a small still, before suddenly you make 600 liters of the stuff, because you don't want 600 liters.
There is a difference between your small still and then scaling up.
Yeah,
to a large
there
still.
is.
It's not just 1 + 1 = more. It's like there's an art to that scaling process as well.
There is, and some things scale 1 to 1, no problem at all. But some ingredients don't. And I mentioned star anise before, and star anise is one of those. You can get to a point where you cannot add any more star anise, whether you're making 600 litres or 1,000 litres. You use the same amount of star anise because that flavour is going to be the same in both of them. So yeah, there's some that you've sort of got to gradually increase, more like the Richter scale than a ruler. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely a challenge.
Right, guys. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap it up. I think Todd, Luke, we need to talk about our sponsors, mate. We need to.
Well,
Hey,
we
we have actually got sponsors, Dave. Believe it or not, we're professional, right?
Good, it's good.
We're a
And
sponsor.
one of our sponsors, Transwood Cooperage, their tagline is "Don't call us, we'll call you," which we think is brilliant.
That's great.
which is actually what a number of our sponsors are now saying. And actually, some of them have already got a plug tonight. Saberglass.
Oh, there we
There
go.
you go. There you go. They even
Saberglass.
deliver to the top end. There you
They
go.
do.
That's a
where our
tagline.
bottles come from.
Australia wide. Yeah. Very well done.
Very
Yeah.
Australia-wide. Yep.
Of course, we know Youngie. He's a massive supporter of the show. He's always watching. Is probably about to comment. Oh fuck! There's a mozzie. Those bastards. I knew he fucking got me.
I doubt he's
before.
going to comment in that sense at all. It'd be something a lot more succinct.
Burnsy, of course, he was the other one that said, "Don't call us, we'll call you." He's just overloaded.
I see you in the NT.
but-
That's because he makes bloody good stills.
He does.
Yeah.
He does indeed.
Does.
Absolutely. Have you had any dealings with barrel brokers yet?
No, I have not actually. I just saw that one. No, I haven't dealt with them at all.
Yeah, right. Well, we're going to be speaking with them in June. I think we're booked in
Yeah, right.
to talk all things, barrels, where he sources them from, how he gets them, like how does the process work. So I think that's actually going to be quite an interesting one because obviously, and I'm sure he does work very closely with Youngie and Transwood as well. To make sure that those barrels he's bringing in are handled nicely.
And
we've got-
Robbie's importing barrels, and he's working with the locals as well. So it's barrel brokers. We use barrel brokers. Highly recommend them for their cars.
And then, of course, our Wild Wogan water, which is the water in all of your whiskies and gins, isn't it, Crafty?
And Australian vodka.
And your vodka.
Absolutely. And water is key in vodka and gin and whiskey for that matter.
Yeah.
It sure is. It's 60% of your product.
Yeah, it makes a hell of a difference. No question
Massive
about it.
difference.
Yeah.
It's a great,
And-
great natural spring, that one.
Yep.
Now, sorry, just to cut away from the sponsors for a moment, what's your water like in Darwin?
It's pretty good, actually. We get all of our water from Darwin River Dam. So it's all monsoon rain that refills that annually. It's then piped out to everybody. And it comes to me and I filter the crap out of it. So
Right.
Before I use it for distilling or cutting back, I have a 5-micron sediment filter because it is got a bit of sediment in it. If you fill the bath up, it would be a bit brown. But it still tastes lovely. Then I've got a 2-stage carbon filter that takes out chlorine and fluoride primarily, then a 4-stage big carbon filter that takes out everything else, any heavy metals, any sort of agricultural stuff that might be in there gets stripped out. Then a 1-micron filter, just in case any of the carbons come out of the carbon filter, to pull that out. And then an Eco Vortex right at the end, which spins it really quick, realigns all the positives and negatives in the water, and gives it a nice soft melt feel. Re-energizes the water, but it also softens it. So, which I think comes through in the gin, especially when you're using that. So yeah, I do actually do a lot to the water before I use it.
That is a lot more processing than I've heard of anywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's people out there that use RO water, or
yeah.
I find that just kills the water completely, and I wanted there to be a bit of life in there. So I worked with a local guy who actually does bottled water, and said, okay, so how do you do that? I want to build and he owns a water filtration company as well, selling filters. So I worked with him, and we came up with a filtration process. And he works with some guys who use filters in the wine industry as well. So together we just came up with, all right, see how this goes. The water's lovely. I use it in my bar and make soda water out of it as well. So I use a traditional old soda siphons with the little bulb. Yep, we use those, and hook it in. So it works well.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
very good. Mate, you don't take a patent out on it, whatever you do, okay? Wham! All right, and on that note,
we still got other spots. We got CCL as well.
Oh, CCL labels.
Can't forget CCL labels.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Big supporters in the industry. Yeah.
So thank you very much to all of our sponsors. Oh, and we did actually mention, we did say Transwood, and yes, they say, don't call us, we'll call you. Well, thank you very much, Dave, for your time. I know you've got a busy night ahead of you. Thank you very much for the bottle that I'm thoroughly enjoying, and I'm going to be spruiking that wherever I possibly can. Absolutely. You've got online purchasing now from the website, willingdistillery.com.au, which also, of course, has all the links to the socials, so everyone should get in there. Look, I'm really excited to see what comes next. What's your next release before we...
Actually, the next release is another gin. It's Darwin Festival gin. So every year there's a Darwin Festival here. Archie Rose had the contract to do their gin for the last 3 years, and I attended for it this year and won the contract. So I've got it now.
Should be brilliant. That should have been a no-brainer, really.
Yeah,
that's a local.
They had I think they had a 3-year contract with them. So
right, wow.
And that 3 years ended last year. So I was able to nail that contract, and I'm really looking forward to producing it. So I've made the gin. I'm waiting on them to finalize the labels, and then we'll release that one. So it'll be a very tropical flavored gin. There's some native finger lime and some grapefruit we've used in that one with some traditional flavors. So a nice, light, refreshing gin, fantastic with a tonic, which will be great for the pre-drinks for the shows that they put on. They have about 5 bars around town during the festival for a couple of weeks. They sell it. So that'll be good.
Brilliant.
I reckon it's time to return to Darwin. I haven't been there in about 10 years. Maybe
I have. I've never been, and I have always wanted to. So
it's a party town.
It is. If you're on your way up, let me know, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
We will.
And vice versa, Dave. If you're down our way, mate, let us know, eh? Let us know.
I will for sure, mate. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And just to wrap something up, and we're about to cross. We're doing a double header tonight. 2 episodes of Shoot the Shit. We're about to cross to Indiana, USA, and Spirits of the French Lick. Mr. Alan Bishop, who is one crazy American craft fucker. That's how I would say Al is, right? So if you got time, tune in and chime in on it, mate, because we're gonna have a wild ride for the next hour with Alan, I think. So.
I want to find out all about moonshine.
I'd love to.
You got to do some work, don't you?
Yeah, I've got to go and do some work. There's been a couple of staff have been poking their head in and going, "You finished yet?
You done yet? We need your help. We need your help." Well, you can catch up on the Facebook live stream or the YouTube as well. It'll be on the website, on iTunes, on Spotify, on Amazon Podcasts, and a couple of other places that I've filtered it out to. Thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate you taking the time on a busy night.
It's been my
Look forward
pleasure, guys.
to,
Thank you.
meeting you in
It's been
person and
awesome.
having a drink soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Love to.
See you, NT.
See you in the NT for sure.
Cheers.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you all. Stay tuned
Cheers,
for the
guys.
next one.
Yeah. Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.